Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Olga Atamanova, and it's my pleasure to welcome you at Ukraine Media Center. It's been 11 years of the war. Today's day 978 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor. And the first topic of our conversation today will be Ukrainian retail. We will talk about current situation in Ukrainian retail, and we will discuss the extent to which the retail sector is prepared to potential complications, potential power shutdowns, and what are the challenges they're facing for the time being. Joining us online is Andrii Zhuk, co-founder and chairman of the Retail Association of Ukraine. Good afternoon, Mr. Andrii. Good afternoon, Ms. Olga. Mr. Andrii, it's no secret to anybody that retail is one of the locomotives of Ukrainian economy, because on one hand it fills Ukrainian budget, on the other hand it employs Ukrainian population. It's obviously important, but we understand that the sector is facing its own challenges that I suggest we discuss today. So let's start with the current dynamics, current turnover. How has it all changed with the beginning of the full-scale invasion? We're seeing some studies that say that retail sector is back to the level of pre-full-scale invasion and is even growing a little bit more. There are certain success stories that we observe. So let's discuss the whole situation. I completely agree that retail fully reflects the Ukrainian economy, and we may call it a mirror of Ukrainian economy, because purchasing power of Ukrainians demonstrates what's going on in the Ukrainian economy. So we'll talk about who is developing, which formats are developing, which retailers, and it will demonstrate what happens in Ukraine. Also, we're about to discuss the challenges that the retail sector is facing, and the changes are already happening, and those challenges, they are already working. And by number of retail sales point, the number of such points of sale is bigger than it used to be before the full-scale invasion. The last study tells us that 19,500 shops were operating in Ukraine. But today I will emphasize that on one hand we see the development of the chains, the opening of the new shops, but we have to take into account what are the key challenges at account of what this opening happens. Yeah, right. So let's talk about probably some figures, the amounts of sales, the amounts of turnover. Well, yeah, really, I would like to say that we have, well, if we previously discussed the challenges that were related to occupation of Ukrainian territories, unfortunately, the last ATB shop was closed in Donetsk region, and we used to talk a lot about other challenges related to power shutdowns, but today we have to mention what's going on right now. There is a huge problem with the staff, with the personnel. It's getting worse and worse day by day. And we have significant deficit related to personnel. We're witnessing the deficit at all levels. We can see it at the level of cash operators, the salesmen, and at the same time this problem exists at the level of mid-level and top-level management. There is a pause in booking in Ukraine. Now until the 15th of November, the booking of critical infrastructure employees is suspended, which is of concern to us. Now we're calling for the booking process to continue. Well, definitely it needs verification. A lot of companies, a lot of employees need verification, like what companies were documented as those who represent critical economic infrastructure, but the booking should continue because it may happen that no one will be able to open the shops tomorrow. There will be no one to stand at the counters. I was talking to a owner of a shop just the other day who has been unable to open their shops within the last couple of months. Well, Mr. Andrii, we understand, we know that the problem of employees is the biggest problem for all of the companies in Ukraine. I think we should discuss it, but at the same time take it with understanding. But what are other challenges that the retail sector is facing apart from this staff deficit? Well, as I've mentioned, there is a challenge that is represented with connection between the economy of Ukraine and retail sector is the fall in purchasing power. We're witnessing new shops opening like Sensei or Aurora chains. Sensei has opened more than 100 shops in Ukraine, and Aurora currently has more than 1,400 shops in Ukraine, which is an evidence of the fact that those retailers, they are aiming at the right target audience. They're offering the right products that are needed by Ukrainian population. They're opening on time and they're opening very successfully. We're not talking about opening of Louis Vuitton or Rolex shops opening in Lviv or Odessa. We're talking about the successful retailers who sell cheap merchandise. The cheap merchandise is developing now. We all understand that there's a lot of IDPs in Ukraine who need new products. There's a lot of people, so to say, who don't want to spend excessive money, and they come directly to those shops who have good propositions of goods that satisfy the demand of the Ukrainian consumers. Mr. Andrii, we understand that people are looking for cheap products. This is what the market tendencies demonstrate, but apart of this, what is another necessary component to become successful in Ukrainian retail? What are the new functions mastered by the functions? What is the necessary precondition to succeed in Ukraine now? Well, those are quite simple things. First of all, what is must-have now is the barrier-free space. All of the shops, all of the pharmacies should be constructed in a way to allow all of the people, including disabled people, to be able to enter that shop. Everybody should have the equal rights to access to retail. Then it's important to have different sales, different promotions for the military, because this is what matters. This is what we need now. What else can we mention? What retail does in conditions of staff deficit? They implement different innovations. Well, they may look simple, but again, that's an innovation that helps. For example, the self-checkout. You can buy something in a shop without assistance of cash register. And another innovation is the use of artificial intelligence in the use of companies. It does help a lot in the offices of the companies. The majority of the companies now take advantage of this innovation. Mr. Andrii, the last innovation that was presented at RAW Expo 2024, it says about the record income of the retail sector, which amounts to 1.3 trillion hryvnia. Well, almost trillion of which accounts for retail. Does it say that our business has transformed, has learned to work in conditions like this? If so, to what extent is the retail sector ready to the upcoming winter? A lot of people say that the winter is going to be difficult. So in your opinion, to what extent is the retail sector prepared to winter? Well, the turnover of retail chains amounts to more than 1.5 trillion, and it's 100 billion more than during pre-war period. However, we have to remember that first, hryvnia was significantly devaluated, and we import a lot of products from other countries, and where there is import, there's always connection to foreign currency. If there is no import, it's a dangerous trend that we have to mention. For example, in Aurora or other networks, there are programs that aim at involving more local manufacturers. But again, even the local manufacturers, they use sometimes imported raw materials. That's why one way or another we're dependent on currency proceeds. And that's one of the reasons behind opening of new shops and the growth of turnover. So basically, why is retail growing? I surmise that the fraction of retail, or so-called traditional retail, is shrinking. By traditional retail, I mean some systemic retail, such as markets, and it happens at the account of opening of non-systemic retails and increase of modern retail fraction in Ukraine. It's good for the economy of Ukraine when this fraction is growing, because those are the companies who officially employ their employees, who pay the taxes. Well, it's one way or another very good for the economy of our country. Talking about the challenges, though, I can once again mention that we've stopped counting. Previously, we were researching it, to what extent is the retail sector studied to the power shutdowns. The last study was demonstrating that 70% of the retail points of sale was equipped with the batteries or generators. So I can safely state that we are ready on part of backup power sources. But what I would like to communicate today, that we have a huge problem with personnel. That we have a huge problem of staff deficit. And again, these business owners that have opened today, who has been unable to open their shops during 2 months, they've already increased their wage to find at least anybody to get employed. So first, they were suggesting one rate of salary, and then they've increased it to find at least somebody. And all those procurements of batteries, of the generators, it's happening at cost of low marginality of the retailers, so because they pay for it from their proceeds. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Andrii, for your answers. Mr. Andrii, let me remind everybody, joining us was Mr. Andrii Zhuk, co-founder and chairman of the Retail Association of Ukraine. We have some questions on the floor. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure working with you. Well, we have one small question on the floor.
Lorenzo Cremonesi from Italian Daily Corriere della Sera from Milano. Sir, can you try to give us some numbers, some figure? We understand, moving around in the country, that the economic crisis is quite deep. Many people left. You have many people left the country. Entire sector or entire region are now empty, distraction, lack of energy. So you mentioned two problems which I found very common when I speak with entrepreneurs in Ukraine, from east to west, to the center, to the capital. One, it's a question of energy. There is no power, so they have to buy generators, etc. And secondly, you mentioned on different occasions now the lack of personnel. They don't have workers because workers are all left or in the army. They are on the front line. They are soldiers. So can you give us some numbers? Do you have any idea how much these two data are interfering, especially the lack of energy and of workers? Can you give us how much they are losing, how much people are needed? Give us some figure, please, to try to figure out this big problem. Thank you.
Дякую, Лоренцо.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenzo. Thank you for your question. So what I can say for sure that more than 70% of food retail, of systemic retail, is equipped with backup power sources in case of power shutdowns or where there is no electricity now. Systemic retail continues their operations. More than 70%. I can double check the exact figures if you leave me my email. We have the studies. I don't have the figures right in front of my eyes right now. Honestly, I don't remember them. But we have another figures that demonstrate the investments of the retail sector in backup power equipment. But installation of a generator doesn't solve the problem completely. We understand it very well that the generator is a temporary solution, because how long can it work? Well, it can work like day or two or maybe a couple of weeks. It's first of all, it's very loud, then it requires maintenance, and it's no solution. If we have the full blackout, it's gonna be a huge problem, and the generators are not going to help us in that case. We will probably have to shut down the points of sale. Talking about the number of personnel who left Ukraine, honestly, nobody knows those figures. Nobody, even the state doesn't know what is the number of people who left Ukraine. And we don't know this figure either. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrii, for this broadcast, and we continue working together for our victory. Just in 10 minutes, we will have another broadcast. We will be discussing psychological resilience. So stay tuned, and glory to Ukraine.